Julian stood by the large window of their shared apartment in San Francisco, the golden rays of the setting sun spilling into the room, casting a warm glow over everything. He glanced at the canvas propped up against the wall, a half-finished painting that reflected his chaotic emotions. The vibrant colors seemed to swirl and dance, much like his thoughts about his best friend, Asher. Asher was sprawled out on the couch, a look of serene peace on his face as he drifted off to sleep. Julian couldn't help but smile at how effortlessly beautiful he looked in that moment. With his tousled dark hair falling over his forehead and his lips slightly parted, Asher seemed worlds away from the stresses of life. Julian had always admired Asher's thoughtful nature, how he approached everything with a quiet intensity that drew people in. He was the kind of person who could make even the most mundane moments feel special. Tonight was supposed to be just another sleepover, a tradition they had maintained since college. They would binge-watch movies, eat too much popcorn, and share stories about their dreams and fears. But as Julian watched Asher sleep, he felt an overwhelming urge to express something deeper than friendship, a feeling that had been simmering beneath the surface for far too long. He tiptoed around the living room, careful not to wake Asher. The walls were adorned with their shared memories, photos from their travels, sketches Julian had made of Asher reading in various parks, and mementos from art exhibitions they had attended together. Each piece told a story of their bond, one that had grown stronger over the years. But tonight, Julian wanted to create something new, something that would encapsulate his feelings for Asher. Picking up his brushes and palette, Julian set to work. He decided to use colors that represented their friendship, warm yellows for joy, deep blues for trust, and vibrant reds for passion. Each stroke of paint felt like a release, allowing him to pour his heart onto the canvas. He painted scenes from their adventures, their first trip to the beach where they laughed until they cried, and the quiet evenings spent discussing their dreams under starlit skies. As he painted, Julian couldn't shake off the nervousness bubbling inside him. What if Asher didn't feel the same way? What if this changed everything? But deep down, Julian knew he couldn't hide these feelings any longer. The thought of confessing made his heart race, but it also filled him with hope. Hours passed as Julian lost himself in his art. He glanced at Asher occasionally, who remained blissfully unaware of the whirlwind of emotions swirling around him. Just as he was adding the final touches, a splash of gold that symbolized hope, he noticed Asher stirring awake. Asher blinked slowly, adjusting to the light as he sat up. "What time is it?" he asked groggily, rubbing his eyes. "Just past midnight," Julian replied with a grin. "You've been out for a while." Asher stretched and then turned his gaze toward the canvas. His eyes widened in surprise as he took in the vibrant colors and intricate details. "Wow, Julian, this is incredible." His voice was filled with genuine awe. Julian felt his heart flutter at Asher's reaction. It's about us," he admitted hesitantly. "What do you mean?" Asher asked, tilting his head in curiosity. Julian took a deep breath, feeling a mix of excitement and fear coursing through him. "I wanted to capture our friendship, the moments we've shared and how much you mean to me." He paused for a moment before adding softly, "And maybe, how I feel about you." Asher's expression shifted from surprise to something deeper, something Julian couldn't quite read yet. The air between them thickened with unspoken words. "And possibilities. I didn't know you felt that way," Asher said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Julian's heart raced as he searched Asher's eyes for understanding. "I've been trying to figure out how to tell you for so long," he confessed. "You're more than just my best friend, you're everything." A silence enveloped them as Asher processed Julian's words. The tension was palpable, it felt like they were standing on the edge of something monumental. I care about you too," Asher finally replied, a shy smile breaking across his face. "I just wasn't sure if you saw me that way." Julian felt an overwhelming sense of relief wash over him as he took a step closer to Asher. "I do," he said firmly. "I really do." Asher's smile widened as he reached out to touch Julian's arm gently. In that moment, everything shifted, their friendship transformed into something new and beautiful. The night stretched on as they talked about their feelings openly for the first time, sharing hopes and fears under the soft glow of moonlight filtering through the window. It was a turning point in their relationship, one filled with promise and excitement for what lay ahead. The morning light streamed through the window, casting a warm glow across the living room. Julian stirred awake, feeling a sense of contentment that he hadn't experienced in a long time. He turned to see Asher still asleep on the couch, his face relaxed and peaceful. The events of the previous night played in Julian's mind like a sweet melody, confessions, laughter, and the promise of something new. As he quietly got up, Julian couldn't help but smile at the sight of Asher. There was something incredibly beautiful about him in that moment, a vulnerability that made Julian's heart swell. He tiptoed into the kitchen to prepare breakfast, wanting to surprise Asher with a special start to their day. Julian set about making pancakes, humming softly to himself as he mixed the batter. The aroma of vanilla and fresh berries filled the air, and he felt a sense of joy bubbling inside him. This was more than just breakfast, it was a celebration of their new relationship. He poured the batter onto the hot griddle, watching as it sizzled and bubbled. After a few minutes, he turned around to find Asher standing in the doorway, rubbing his eyes and looking adorably disheveled. "What's that amazing smell?" he asked, his voice still thick with sleep. "Just a little something to start our day," Julian replied with a grin. "Pancakes. Your favorite." Asher's eyes lit up at the mention of pancakes. "You didn't have to do that," he said, stepping closer. "But I'm glad you did." Julian flipped the pancakes with a flourish, feeling a rush of happiness at Asher's presence. They chatted easily as they prepared breakfast together, their laughter mingling with the sounds of sizzling batter. It felt natural, like they had always been meant to share these moments. Once breakfast was ready, they sat at their small dining table, plates piled high with fluffy pancakes drizzled with maple syrup and topped with fresh berries. As they dug in, Julian couldn't help but steal glances at Asher. There was something different about him this morning, an openness in his eyes that made Julian's heart race. "So," Asher said between bites, "what do we do now? I mean, where do we go from here?" Julian paused, considering his words carefully. "I think we take it one step at a time," he replied thoughtfully. "We enjoy this new chapter together and see where it leads us." Asher nodded slowly, his expression serious yet hopeful. "I like that idea. I've never really been in a relationship before, especially not like this." He looked down at his plate for a moment before meeting Julian's gaze again. "But I want to try." "Me too," Julian said earnestly. "I want to explore this with you, everything we can be together." They finished breakfast and decided to take advantage of the beautiful day outside. The sun was shining brightly, and there was a gentle breeze that promised adventure. They grabbed their jackets and headed out into the bustling streets of San Francisco. As they walked side by side, Julian felt an electric energy between them, a spark that made every shared glance feel charged with possibility. They wandered through Golden Gate Park, surrounded by lush greenery and colorful flowers blooming in every direction. The park was alive with people enjoying picnics, jogging along paths, and playing music. "Let's find a spot by the lake," Asher suggested, pointing toward a picturesque area where ducks paddled lazily across the water. They settled on a grassy knoll overlooking the lake, where they could watch the world go by. Julian pulled out his sketchbook while Asher leaned back on his elbows, soaking up the sun. "What are you going to draw?" Asher asked curiously. "I'm not sure yet," Julian replied, flipping through his pages filled with sketches of various scenes around the city. "Maybe something inspired by today, or maybe just you." Asher chuckled softly at that. "Really? You'd draw me?" "Absolutely," Julian said with a playful grin. "You're my muse today." As he began to sketch, Julian felt completely at ease. The lines flowed effortlessly from his pencil as he captured Asher's relaxed form against the backdrop of shimmering water and vibrant trees. Every stroke felt like an expression of his feelings, an unspoken testament to their connection. After some time passed in comfortable silence, Asher shifted slightly and looked over Julian's shoulder at the drawing taking shape on the page. "Wow, that looks amazing." His voice was filled with genuine admiration. Julian glanced back at him and felt warmth spread through him at Asher's enthusiasm. "Thanks, but it's really just coming from you being here." They spent hours talking about everything and nothing, sharing stories from their childhoods, discussing their dreams for the future, and laughing at silly memories that seemed even funnier now that they were together. With each passing moment, their bond deepened further. As dusk began to settle over the city, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Julian put down his sketchbook and turned to face Asher fully. "Can I ask you something?" he said hesitantly. Of course, Asher replied, looking intrigued. What are you most excited about now that we're, well, together? Asher took a moment to think before answering. I'm excited about exploring what this means for us, how we can grow together, he said softly. And honestly, I'm excited about being able to hold your hand without worrying about what anyone else thinks. Julian smiled widely at that sentiment, it echoed his own feelings perfectly. They both leaned closer until their shoulders touched, a simple gesture that felt monumental. As darkness enveloped them and stars began to twinkle overhead, Julian reached for Asher's hand tentatively. Their fingers intertwined naturally as if they had been doing this forever. Let's make tonight special, Julian suggested softly. What did you have in mind? Asher asked with an excited glint in his eyes. I thought we could grab some ice cream from that little shop down the street and then head back home for a movie marathon, Julian proposed. I love it. Ice cream sounds perfect, Asher replied enthusiastically. Hand in hand, they walked back through the park toward their favorite ice cream shop, a cozy little place known for its unique flavors and friendly atmosphere. The evening air was filled with laughter as they playfully debated which flavors to choose. With cones in hand, Julian opting for mint chocolate chip while Asher chose lavender honey, they made their way back home under a canopy of stars twinkling above them. Once inside their apartment, they settled onto the couch wrapped in blankets as they started their movie marathon, classic comedies filled with laughter and lighthearted moments that perfectly matched their mood. As they watched films late into the night, stealing glances at each other between scenes filled with laughter or romance, it became clear, this was just the beginning of something beautiful between them, a journey filled with love and discovery that neither had anticipated but both desperately wanted. The sun peeked through the curtains the next morning, casting a soft glow across the room. I woke up feeling a sense of excitement that buzzed in my chest. Last night had been magical, filled with laughter, ice cream, and the warmth of Asher's hand in mine. I couldn't help but smile as I remembered how we had settled into our new rhythm, both of us navigating this uncharted territory of being more than friends. I glanced over at Asher, who was still peacefully asleep, his hair tousled and a hint of a smile playing on his lips. There was something undeniably charming about him in the morning light. I quietly got out of bed, careful not to disturb him, and tiptoed into the kitchen to make breakfast again. The thought of surprising him with pancakes made my heart flutter. As I mixed the batter, my mind wandered back to our conversations from the previous day. We had talked about everything, our dreams, our fears, and what it meant to be together now. It was exhilarating yet terrifying to think about how much had changed in such a short time. I wanted to make sure we were both on the same page as we ventured into this new phase of our relationship. Once breakfast was ready, I plated the pancakes and added fresh strawberries on top, drizzling them with maple syrup. Just as I set everything on the table, I heard Asher's footsteps padding softly behind me. Wow, you're up early, he said, rubbing his eyes as he entered the kitchen. The sight of him in a simple t-shirt and pajama pants made my heart skip a beat. I wanted to surprise you, I replied with a grin. Pancakes again, your favorite. Asher's face lit up with delight. You really know how to spoil me, he said playfully as he took a seat at the table. We enjoyed breakfast together, chatting about our plans for the day. Asher mentioned wanting to explore some local art galleries, something we both loved but hadn't done in a while. The idea excited me, it felt like a perfect way to spend more time together while indulging in our shared passion. After breakfast, we decided to head out. The city was alive with energy as we walked hand in hand through the streets of San Francisco. The sun was shining brightly, and there was a gentle breeze that carried the scent of blooming flowers from nearby parks. As we approached the first gallery, I could feel my excitement building. Art had always been a significant part of our lives, it was where we connected on so many levels. Stepping inside, we were greeted by vibrant colors and intriguing sculptures that filled every corner of the space. Look at this one, Asher exclaimed, pointing toward a large abstract painting that seemed to pulse with energy. It's so chaotic yet beautiful. I nodded in agreement, stepping closer to examine it. It's like it captures all those emotions we sometimes can't put into words, I said thoughtfully. As we wandered through the gallery, discussing each piece and what it evoked in us, I felt a deepening connection with Asher. His insights were profound, he saw things in art that I sometimes overlooked. It was moments like these that made me realize how lucky I was to have him by my side, not just as my partner but as my creative counterpart. After exploring several galleries and losing track of time amidst stunning artworks, we decided to take a break at a nearby cafe known for its artisanal coffee and pastries. We settled at an outdoor table under an umbrella, enjoying the warm sun on our faces. "I love this place," Asher said as he took a sip of his coffee. "It feels so alive here." "Agreed," I replied, savoring my pastry while stealing glances at him. "And it's even better sharing it with you." Asher looked up from his cup and met my gaze with a soft smile that made my heart race. "I never imagined we'd be here, like this," he said quietly. "Me neither," I admitted. "But it feels right." We spent hours talking about everything, from our favorite artists to our childhood memories, each conversation weaving us closer together. It felt liberating to share these intimate moments without any fear or hesitation. Eventually, we decided to take a stroll along the waterfront. The view of the bay was breathtaking, boats glided gracefully over the water while seagulls called out overhead. We walked side by side, fingers intertwined, feeling like nothing could break this newfound bond between us. As we reached Pier 39, the lively atmosphere enveloped us. Street performers entertained crowds while families laughed and children chased each other around. We stopped at an ice cream stand where Asher insisted on trying an unusual flavor, lavender honey. "Trust me, it's amazing," he urged as he handed me a cone filled with vibrant purple ice cream. I took a tentative lick and was surprised by how refreshing it tasted. "Okay, you were right. This is delicious." Asher grinned triumphantly before taking his own scoop and leaning against me as we watched the world go by. "This day has been perfect," he said softly after a moment of comfortable silence. I nodded in agreement but felt an urge to express something deeper that had been hovering just beneath the surface since last night's revelations. "Asher, can I ask you something?" "Of course," he replied, looking at me curiously. "What are your thoughts about us? About being together?" He paused for a moment, contemplating his response carefully before speaking. "Honestly, it scares me sometimes because it feels so new and intense," he admitted. "But at the same time, it excites me more than anything else." I felt relief wash over me at his honesty. It mirrored my own feelings perfectly. "I feel the same way," I confessed. "There's so much potential here, so much we can explore together." Asher smiled softly before leaning closer to whisper conspiratorially, "Let's promise each other that no matter what happens next, we'll communicate openly about everything." "I promise," I replied earnestly, squeezing his hand tighter as if sealing our pact with that simple gesture. With renewed energy and clarity about where we stood as partners moving forward together into uncharted waters filled with possibility ahead, I knew that whatever came next would be worth every moment spent exploring this beautiful connection between us. As dusk began to settle over San Francisco once more, a soft glow illuminating everything around us, I couldn't help but feel grateful for this incredible journey we were embarking on together. The next morning arrived with a crispness in the air that hinted at the changing seasons. I woke up feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Today was the day I had planned to unveil the painting I had created for Asher, a piece that captured not just our friendship but the deeper feelings I had for him. After showering and dressing, I made my way to the kitchen, my mind racing with thoughts of how Asher would react. I decided to prepare a simple breakfast: scrambled eggs, toast, and fresh fruit. As I cooked, I could hear Asher stirring in the other room, his soft groans of sleep slowly fading into wakefulness. "Good morning," I called out cheerfully as he shuffled into the kitchen, his hair still tousled and eyes half closed. "Morning," he replied, a sleepy smile spreading across his face as he leaned against the doorframe. "What's cooking?" "Just some breakfast to fuel us for the day," I said, trying to keep my voice light despite the fluttering in my stomach. "And maybe a little surprise afterward." Asher raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "A surprise? Now you have my attention." We enjoyed breakfast together, chatting about our plans for the day. After we finished eating, I took a deep breath and decided it was time to show him the painting. "How about we spend some time in the living room?" I suggested casually. "Sure, what's up?" he asked, following me with curiosity. I led him to the living room, where the painting was propped against the wall, covered by a light sheet. My heart raced as I approached it, trying to gauge Asher's expression. "Okay, So, remember last week when you fell asleep on the couch? I began, feeling a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Yeah, he replied, his interest piqued. Well, while you were sleeping, I felt inspired to create something, I said, pulling off the sheet dramatically to reveal the artwork. Asher's eyes widened as he took in the vibrant colors and intricate details of the painting. It was a swirling representation of our friendship, depicting moments we had shared together, laughter at the beach, quiet evenings under starlit skies, and now this new chapter of love blossoming between us. It's incredible, he breathed, stepping closer to examine it more closely. Julian, this is beautiful. His voice was filled with awe as he traced his fingers over the canvas. I wanted it to reflect everything we are, friends first but also something more, I confessed, my heart pounding as I waited for his reaction. Asher turned to face me, his expression serious yet soft. You captured so much emotion in this piece. It's like you painted what's been in my heart all along. I felt a rush of relief mixed with joy at his words. I'm glad you see it that way, I said softly. I wanted you to know how much you mean to me. For a moment, we stood there in silence, our eyes locked together as if we were communicating without words. Then Asher stepped closer and took my hands in his. You have no idea how much this means to me, he said earnestly. I've been feeling so many things since we started this journey together, and seeing this makes it all feel real. My heart soared at his admission. I feel it too, I replied softly. I want us to explore this connection fully, to see where it can take us. Asher smiled warmly before leaning in closer until our foreheads touched gently. The world around us faded away as we stood there in that intimate moment, two souls connecting on a deeper level than either of us had anticipated. Just then, Asher pulled back slightly and grinned mischievously. You know what we should do now? What's that? I asked, curious about where he was going with this. Let's take this painting on an adventure. We can find a spot outside where we can set it up and enjoy some fresh air while we admire your masterpiece, he suggested excitedly. I couldn't help but laugh at his enthusiasm. That sounds like an amazing idea. Let's do it. We carefully moved the painting outside into our small backyard, a cozy space filled with potted plants and flowers that added splashes of color against the backdrop of our apartment building. The sun bathed everything in golden light as we set up a small picnic blanket beneath a tree. Once settled down with snacks and drinks beside us, we admired the painting together under the open sky. Asher leaned back on his elbows while gazing at it thoughtfully. I love how you incorporated so many memories into this piece, he said after a moment of silence. It makes me feel like we're reliving those moments all over again. I wanted it to be more than just colors on canvas, I wanted it to tell our story, I replied earnestly. Asher turned his head slightly toward me, a playful glint in his eye. So what's next for our story? Any ideas? I thought for a moment before responding playfully, well, how about we make new memories right now? We could paint together. His eyes lit up at that suggestion. That sounds like so much fun. Let's do it. We spent hours laughing and painting side by side, each stroke of our brushes blending colors together as we created something entirely new from scratch. It felt liberating to express ourselves creatively while sharing this intimate experience. As dusk began to settle over us once again, a soft glow illuminating everything around, I couldn't help but feel grateful for these moments spent with Asher. They were transforming into cherished memories that would last forever. Later that evening, after cleaning up our supplies and admiring our collaborative artwork drying on an easel nearby, we snuggled on the blanket under the stars once more, our hearts full from both creativity and connection. In that quiet moment beneath an endless sky filled with shimmering stars above us, I knew deep down that whatever challenges lay ahead wouldn't matter because we would face them together hand in hand. The next few days passed in a blissful haze, filled with laughter, late-night talks, and the thrill of exploring our new relationship. Asher and I had settled into a comfortable routine, each day bringing us closer together. We spent our mornings painting and our afternoons wandering through the city, discovering new cafes and art galleries. But beneath the surface of our happiness, I could sense a tension building, a question that lingered in the air, unspoken but palpable. One evening, as we lounged on the couch watching a movie, I noticed Asher's expression had shifted. He seemed lost in thought, his brow furrowed slightly as he stared at the screen but didn't seem to be watching. I turned to him, feeling a knot form in my stomach. Hey, what's on your mind? I asked gently. He glanced at me, his eyes searching mine for a moment before he sighed. I've been thinking about us, about what this all means, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. My heart raced. What do you mean? I asked, trying to keep my tone calm even though I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. Asher shifted on the couch, running a hand through his hair. I love what we have right now, this connection, this friendship that has grown into something more. But I can't help but wonder if we're rushing into things, he said honestly. I felt a pang of disappointment but also understood where he was coming from. I get it, I replied softly. It's a big change for both of us. I just don't want to ruin what we already have, he continued, his eyes filled with concern. What if this doesn't work out? What if we lose each other? I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. Asher, I don't want to lose you either, I said earnestly. But I also believe that what we have is worth exploring. We can take it slow, figure things out as we go. He nodded slowly, considering my words. You're right, I just need some time to process everything. Of course, I reassured him. We can talk about it whenever you're ready. Asher smiled faintly and leaned against me, resting his head on my shoulder. It was comforting to be close to him, even amidst the uncertainty. We sat in silence for a while, allowing the weight of our conversation to settle before returning to the movie. Later that night, after the credits rolled and the room fell silent once more, I turned to Asher with a playful grin. How about we do something fun tomorrow? Something to take our minds off everything. Like what? He asked curiously. Let's go to that new escape room downtown. I've heard great things about it, I suggested enthusiastically. Asher chuckled softly. You know how terrible I am at puzzles. That's exactly why it will be fun. We'll either solve it together or get hopelessly lost, and either way, we'll make some great memories, I replied with a wink. He laughed again and nodded in agreement. Okay, let's do it. The next day dawned bright and clear as we made our way downtown to the escape room. The energy of the city buzzed around us, people bustling by with purpose as street performers entertained passers-by with music and laughter. As we arrived at the escape room venue, excitement bubbled between us like electricity. The atmosphere was lively, groups of friends chatted animatedly as they prepared for their own adventures inside. Once inside, we were greeted by an enthusiastic staff member who explained the rules and theme of our escape room, a mysterious detective story where we had to solve clues to uncover a hidden treasure. Asher looked both nervous and excited as we entered the dimly lit room filled with intriguing props and puzzles waiting to be solved. Okay, let's do this, he said with determination. The clock started ticking down from 60 minutes as we began searching for clues hidden throughout the space. We worked together seamlessly, Asher's keen eye for detail complemented my creative thinking perfectly. Each time we uncovered another clue or solved a puzzle together, our laughter echoed off the walls. Look at this, Asher exclaimed after finding a hidden compartment behind an old bookshelf filled with dusty books. Inside was another clue that led us closer to solving the mystery. We were so engrossed in our task that we lost track of time. Before we knew it, only 10 minutes remained on the clock. Panic set in as we scrambled to piece together the final clues. Where is it? What are we missing? Asher muttered under his breath while pacing back and forth. Suddenly, an idea struck me. Wait, what if the last clue is connected to that painting over there? I pointed toward an ornate canvas hanging on the wall that seemed out of place among all the other props. Asher's eyes widened as he rushed over to examine it closely. You're right, look at those colors, they match some of the ones from earlier clues. With renewed energy, we worked quickly to decipher its meaning and finally unlocked the final puzzle just seconds before time ran out. The door swung open dramatically as triumphant music played in the background. We did it! Asher shouted joyfully as he pulled me into a tight embrace. I can't believe we actually solved it. I laughed breathlessly against his shoulder. As we stepped outside into the sunlight once more, exhilaration coursed through me like adrenaline after an intense workout. The escape room had been more than just fun, it had brought us closer together by forcing us to communicate and rely on each other under pressure. That was amazing. We should definitely do more things like this, Asher said excitedly as we walked down the street hand in hand. I agree. It was such a great way to spend time together, I replied with a smile. As we continued exploring downtown San Francisco, stopping for lunch at a quirky cafe filled with local art, I felt lighter than ever before despite our earlier conversation about taking things slow. It was clear that whatever challenges lay ahead wouldn't matter if we faced them together, one adventure at a time. Later that evening after returning home from our day out, I found myself reflecting on how much had changed since Asher came into my life. Every moment spent together felt like building blocks towards something beautiful and lasting between us. As I settled onto the couch beside him later that night, a sense of peace washed over me knowing that no matter what uncertainties lingered ahead, we would navigate them side by side. The days turned into weeks, and our relationship continued to blossom in ways I had never imagined. Asher and I fell into a comfortable rhythm, each day bringing new adventures and deeper conversations. We explored more of San Francisco, from hidden gems in the Mission District to quiet spots along the waterfront. With every shared experience, I felt our bond growing stronger, yet I was also acutely aware of the unspoken tension that lingered beneath the surface. One sunny Saturday morning, we decided to visit a local farmer's market. The vibrant colors of fresh produce and the sounds of laughter filled the air as we strolled through the stalls hand in hand. Asher was particularly excited about trying different types of cheese and homemade jams, and I couldn't help but smile at his enthusiasm. "Look at this," he exclaimed, pointing to a stall overflowing with colorful fruits. "We have to get some strawberries for our pancakes." "Absolutely," I replied, laughing as he practically bounced over to the vendor. Watching him interact with the sellers was always a joy. His genuine curiosity and warmth made everyone feel at ease. After picking out strawberries and a few other goodies, we found a cozy spot on a nearby bench to enjoy our snacks. Asher took a bite of a ripe strawberry, his eyes lighting up with delight. "These are amazing, so sweet," he said, offering me one. I took it from his hand, savoring the burst of flavor as I bit into it. "You're right, we should come here more often." As we sat there enjoying our treats, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was still unresolved between us. The conversation from weeks ago about taking things slow lingered in my mind. While we were having fun and growing closer, I sensed that Asher was still grappling with his feelings. "Hey," I said gently, breaking the comfortable silence between us. "Can we talk about something?" Asher looked up from his strawberry, his expression shifting to one of curiosity mixed with apprehension. "Sure, what's on your mind?" "I've been thinking about us, about where we're headed," I began, trying to keep my tone light despite the weight of my words. He nodded slowly, his gaze steady on mine. "Yeah, me too. I know we agreed to take things slow," I continued, "but I can't help but feel like we're at a point where we need to define what this means for us." Asher's brow furrowed slightly as he considered my words. "I've been feeling that too," he admitted finally. "I love what we have right now, but sometimes it feels like there's this invisible line between friendship and something more." I took a deep breath, feeling both nervous and hopeful. What if we crossed that line? What if we embraced this connection fully? He hesitated for a moment before responding. "I want to, Julian. I really do. But I'm scared." "Scared of what?" I asked gently. "Scared of losing you if things don't work out," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. My heart ached at his vulnerability. "Asher, I don't want to lose you either. But isn't it worth the risk? We can communicate openly about everything, just like we've been doing." He looked down at his hands for a moment before meeting my gaze again. "You're right," he said softly. "I just need to be sure that this is what we both want." "I'm sure," I replied firmly, reaching for his hand and squeezing it gently. "I want you in my life, fully and completely." Asher smiled faintly at my words, though uncertainty still flickered in his eyes. "Okay," he said finally, taking a deep breath as if preparing himself for what lay ahead. "Let's take that leap together." A wave of relief washed over me as I realized we were on the same page. We spent the rest of our time at the market talking about what this new phase could look like for us, how we could navigate our feelings while still cherishing our friendship. Afterward, we decided to head back home to unwind after an eventful morning. As we walked through our front door, an idea struck me. "How about a movie night? We can make popcorn and watch something fun," I suggested. Asher's eyes lit up with excitement again. "That sounds perfect. Let's do it." We settled onto the couch with bowls of popcorn in hand and picked out a light-hearted comedy that promised plenty of laughs. As the movie played on screen, I found myself stealing glances at Asher when he wasn't looking, his laughter infectious and genuine. Halfway through the film, during a particularly funny scene, Asher turned toward me with an impish grin on his face. "You know what would make this even better?" "What's that?" I asked playfully. "A pillow fight," he declared suddenly before launching himself at me with surprising agility. I burst into laughter as we wrestled for control of the pillows scattered around us. It was exhilarating, the carefree joy of being together without any weighty thoughts hanging over us. Eventually, after much laughter and playful shoving, we collapsed back onto the couch breathless and grinning widely. "That was exactly what I needed," Asher said between breaths. "Me too," I replied softly as I turned to face him fully. In that moment, everything felt right, like all our worries had melted away under the warmth of shared laughter and connection. Asher looked deeply into my eyes, then leaned forward slightly until our foreheads touched once more, a gesture that felt both intimate and reassuring all at once. "I'm glad we talked today," he said quietly. "Me too," I whispered back before closing the distance between us just enough for our lips to meet in a gentle kiss, a sweet promise of everything that lay ahead. The kiss deepened as time seemed to stand still around us. It felt like everything else faded away. The world outside vanished into nothingness while only we remained, lost in each other's embrace. When we finally pulled away breathless yet smiling wide, I knew that whatever challenges awaited us would be faced together, side by side, embracing every twist and turn along this beautiful journey together.